The boardroom on the 48th floor was silent except for the hum of expensive electronics. Serafina Caldwell's fingers hovered over the contract that would change everything. $2 billion. One signature. Then the door burst open. A man in a gray janitor's uniform stormed in, mop handle raised like a weapon. Before anyone could react, he brought it down hard on her laptop. The screen shattered. Glass scattered across polished mahogany. Everyone froze. "Are you insane?" Serafina's voice cut through the shock. But as the debris settled, something rolled free. A silver chip, small, innocent, deadly. The room held its breath. That chip contained data worth billions, thought lost forever. The smash that seemed like destruction was actually salvation. Serafina Caldwell didn't believe in second chances. Not for people, not for herself. At 33, she'd built Caldwell Innovations from her father's ashes into a tech empire spanning 3 continents. She was brilliant, beautiful, and utterly alone. Her corner office overlooked Manhattan like a throne room, all glass and steel. She trusted algorithms, not hearts. Data, not promises. Her father had trusted the wrong partner once. It killed him. She swore she'd never make that mistake. Every decision was calculated, every risk measured, every person kept at arm's length. The board respected her. Investors feared her. Employees whispered about her ice-cold demeanor and impossible standards. But no one really knew her. That was exactly how she wanted it. Tonight's merger would cement her legacy. Caldwell Innovations would become untouchable. She'd finally be safe from the betrayals that had destroyed her father and shaped her into someone who believed vulnerability was weakness. The contract sat before her, pristine and perfect. Numbers that would make her one of the most powerful tech executives in the world. All she had to do was sign. The international partners smiled across the table. Her CFO, Richard Hale, nodded encouragement. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. She reached for her pen, unaware that 3 floors below, someone had just discovered the truth. 3 floors below, in a storage closet that smelled of cleaning supplies and old coffee, Ethan Brooks was helping his daughter with homework. Lila sat on an overturned bucket, her math book balanced on her knees, ponytail bouncing as she worked through fractions. She was 8 years old and still drew hearts on her father's work orders. Ethan was 37 and looked 50. The lines around his eyes told stories of sleepless nights and endless worry. 4 years ago, he'd been the top data security engineer at Meridian Labs. He'd had a house in the suburbs, a wife who loved him, and a future that seemed limitless. Then someone stole classified technology on his watch. He tried to stop it, tried to prove who was really responsible. Instead, he became the scapegoat. His reputation destroyed overnight. His career ended. His wife died 6 months later from an illness they could no longer afford to treat. Now he cleaned floors in the building where decisions worth billions were made. He wore a name tag that said, Janitor 47, and emptied trash cans for people who never looked at his face. But Ethan still noticed things. The flicker of a security camera, the hum of a server running code it shouldn't, the pattern of footsteps in empty hallways. Old habits died hard, and tonight, something was very wrong. The electrical systems were humming with a frequency that shouldn't exist. A signal. Hidden. Dangerous. He'd been tracking it for 3 days. Ethan had first noticed the signal 72 hours ago. A frequency that shouldn't exist in a building this secure, pulsing through the maintenance electrical grid like a hidden heartbeat. He'd traced it through ventilation shafts and server rooms, following a trail only someone with his background could see. It led to the executive floor, to the CEO's office, to the laptop she used for everything important. Someone had planted a transmitter inside it. Someone who knew exactly when she'd be using it next. The merger meeting. Tonight. Midnight. Ethan checked the technical camera feeds from his janitor's access panel. There, in grainy black and white, the proof he needed. 3 weeks ago, during a routine IT maintenance window, someone had swapped Serafina's laptop for an identical clone. The real one was tagged and logged in the system. The replacement looked perfect, except for the chip hidden in its casing. A data ghost designed to activate the moment she signed the contract. It would erase Project Phoenix completely, transfer the technology to whoever was on the other end of that signal, and leave Caldwell Innovations with nothing but an empty shell, worth billions on paper, worth zero in reality. Ethan stared at the timestamp. 11:47. 13 minutes until the signing. He looked at Lila, asleep now, with her head on his jacket. He looked at the camera feed, showing the boardroom 3 floors up. If he did nothing, a company worth billions would be gutted. If he acted, he'd lose the only job he could get with his ruined reputation. But he'd made a promise to his dying wife. Never stay silent when something's wrong. He grabbed his mop and ran. The elevator was too slow. Ethan took the stairs 3 at a time, his work boots echoing in the concrete stairwell. His mind raced faster than his legs. If he called security, they'd never believe a janitor with a criminal record over corporate guards protecting a billion-dollar deal. If he tried to explain, they'd waste precious minutes asking questions while the clock ran out. He had to stop this now. The 48th floor hallway gleamed like a museum. Ethan's reflection stared back at him from polished marble. Sweat soaked through his uniform. At the boardroom door, 2 security guards stepped forward. "Sir, this floor is restricted." Ethan didn't slow down. "I need to see Miss Caldwell. Now. Emergency. You need to leave, or we'll remove you." Through the frosted glass, Ethan could see shadows moving. Serafina reaching for a pen. The document sliding across the table. No more time. He shoved past the first guard and slammed his shoulder into the door. It flew open. 20 faces turned toward him. Serafina's eyes went wide with shock and anger. "If you sign that contract, the entire company's core data will be erased in 60 seconds. His voice cracked with desperation. Someone laughed. Someone else reached for a phone. Serafina's hand froze above the signature line. "Who the hell are you?" Ethan didn't answer. He crossed the room in 4 strides, raised the mop handle, and brought it down with everything he had. The laptop exploded into pieces. Glass and plastic scattered. A partner screamed. Guards lunged forward, grabbing Ethan's arms. But his eyes stayed locked on the debris, searching. Then he saw it, the silver chip, rolling across polished wood, coming to rest against the unsigned contract. Silence dropped like a curtain. Then chaos erupted. Executives shouting. Guards forcing Ethan to his knees. Someone calling police. Richard Hale stood, face red with fury. "Get him out. He's destroyed company property. This is insane." But Serafina didn't move, her eyes locked on the small silver chip resting against her pen. She picked it up slowly, turned it over. The light caught its surface, revealing circuitry that definitely wasn't standard hardware. Her chief technology officer, Marcus Chen, leaned in close. His face went pale. "That's not supposed to be there." Serafina's voice cut through the noise like ice. "Everyone out. Except him." She pointed at Ethan. The room emptied slowly. International partners muttering in confusion. Board members demanding explanations. When the door finally closed, only Serafina, Ethan, Marcus, and 2 guards remained. Ethan was still on his knees, wrists zip-tied. Serafina stood over him. "You have 30 seconds to convince me not to have you arrested." Ethan met her gaze. "If I'm wrong, call the police. But if I'm right, you should be thanking me." The security office smelled like burnt coffee and suspicion. Ethan sat in a metal chair bolted to the floor, wrists still zip-tied, while Marcus Chen tore apart the laptop's remains under harsh fluorescent lights. The chip sat under a magnifying lamp, looking impossibly small for something that had nearly destroyed an empire. Serafina stood against the wall, arms crossed, watching. She hadn't spoken in 20 minutes, just observed with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Marcus worked in silence, fingers flying across keyboards, running diagnostics on isolated systems that couldn't connect to the main network. The precautions of someone who understood exactly how dangerous unknown technology could be. Sweat beaded on his forehead. When he finally looked up, His face had lost all color. It's Project Phoenix. The entire source code. Every algorithm. Every patent application. Everything we lost 6 months ago. Serafina gripped the desk edge. How is that possible? Someone copied it before we even knew it was stolen. Stored it in this chip. Embedded it in your laptop. Marcus's fingers trembled as he pulled up line after line of code. But that's not the worst part. There's a worm program wrapped around it. If you'd signed that contract at midnight, this would have activated. It would have uploaded Phoenix to an external server, then wiped every trace from our systems. The room went cold. Serafina turned to Ethan. How did you know? I didn't know what was on the chip. I just knew the laptop was compromised. Signal analysis, electrical frequency monitoring, old habits. You're a janitor. Now, yes. 4 years ago, I was a data security engineer. The silence stretched. Marcus cleared his throat. Miss Caldwell. Whoever planted this had executive-level access. This wasn't an outside hack. Serafina's jaw tightened. Run full diagnostics. I want to know when that laptop was swapped and who had access. She looked at the guards. Cut him loose. The zip ties fell away. Ethan rubbed his wrists. Serafina stepped closer. Who are you really? Someone who's seen this kind of betrayal before. Someone who won't fail again. The background check took 6 hours. By dawn, Serafina sat alone in her office, with Ethan Brooks's file spread across her desk. The pieces didn't fit the narrative she'd been told. Top honors at MIT, 12 years at Meridian Labs, lead security architect on projects worth hundreds of millions. Awards. Commendations. A brilliant career. Then, 4 years ago, everything collapsed. A technology theft. Classified defense algorithms stolen and sold. The investigation pointed to Ethan. Circumstantial evidence. Suspicious timing. Access logs showing his credentials during the breach. But as Serafina read deeper, cracks appeared. Ethan had reported irregularities weeks before the theft. He'd flagged unusual access patterns. He'd recommended additional security protocols, all ignored by management. Then, the day after the breach was discovered, Ethan was fired. No formal charges, no trial. Just termination and a destroyed reputation. The company needed a scapegoat to satisfy government contracts and worried investors. Ethan had fought back. Hired lawyers he couldn't afford. Demanded a real investigation. The legal battle dragged on for months, draining his savings. Then his wife got sick. Cancer. Treatable, but expensive. His insurance was tied to his job. Without it, he dropped the case. Sold everything for her treatment. It wasn't enough. Serafina found a photo. Ethan, younger, smiling, standing beside a dark-haired woman holding a baby. The caption, with wife Jennifer and daughter Leela. Another document showed Jennifer Brooks, deceased, 18 months after Ethan lost his job. Serafina closed the file. She remembered her own father in his final days, destroyed by betrayal, a business partner who'd stolen technology and left him broken. She'd been 16. The memory still burned. She looked out at Manhattan turning gold with sunrise. A man who'd lost everything had just saved her from the same fate. Maybe he wasn't a saboteur. Maybe he understood what sabotage really looked like. The board meeting 3 days later was brutal. 12 executives in tailored suits, each convinced they knew what was best. Richard Hale, the silver-haired CFO, led the attack with smooth confidence. Miss Caldwell, we understand your gratitude. But keeping this man on staff creates enormous liability. He destroyed property. He disrupted a critical negotiation. And he has a documented criminal record in our industry. He saved the company, Serafina said evenly. He assaulted your laptop based on a hunch. What happens next time? Do we let janitors dictate security policy? Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. Serafina felt the familiar pressure building, the weight of expectation, The cost of appearing weak. The optics are terrible, another board member added. Investors are nervous about the delayed merger. We need strong leadership. That means consequences. It means justice, Serafina countered. Richard leaned forward, voice smooth as aged whiskey. We're not suggesting prosecution. Just quiet termination. Give him severance. Everyone moves on. The merger gets back on track. Serafina looked around the table. Saw fear, masquerading as wisdom. People protecting quarterly reports. Not principles. She thought about her father. About the partner who'd betrayed him while the board looked away. Her hands flattened on the polished wood. I'm not firing him. I'm promoting him to security consultant and reopening his case from Meridian Labs. Full investigation. If Ethan Brooks was wrong about anything, we'll know. But if he was right, I want to understand everything he sees that we're missing. The room erupted. Richard's face darkened. You're making a mistake. Maybe. But it's mine to make. That evening, Serafina found Ethan in the basement maintenance bay. He was teaching Lila how to rewire a broken desk lamp, their heads bent together over the scarred workbench. The little girl's tongue stuck out in concentration. Miss Caldwell. Lila jumped up, excited. Look! Daddy's teaching me circuits. Serafina smiled despite her exhaustion. That's wonderful, Lila. You're very talented. Thank you. Daddy says fixing broken things is important. Do you run this whole building? Something like that. Wow. That's a lot of floors. Daddy says, you're very smart and very sad. Ethan's head snapped up. Lila, it's okay. Serafina said softly. Why do you think I'm sad? The girl considered this seriously. Because you're always alone. We see you through the windows when we're cleaning. You never have friends visit. Just people in suits who look angry. The observation hit harder than any board criticism. Ethan stood, wiping his hands. Lila, finish that last connection. I need to speak with Miss Caldwell. The girl nodded and returned to her work, humming. Ethan and Serafina walked to the far end of the bay, where machinery noise covered their voices. The board wants me to fire you. I know. I would too, from their perspective. Why did you do it? Risk everything for a company that doesn't know your name? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. 4 years ago, I saw something wrong at Meridian. Someone was stealing data. I tried to speak up. My boss dismissed it. My colleagues thought I was paranoid. So I kept digging on my own. When the breach finally happened, all my digging just made me look guilty. I became the scapegoat. He looked at Lila across the room. After that, I stayed silent, kept my head down, and my wife paid the price. She got sick, and I couldn't afford treatment because I'd lost everything fighting a battle I couldn't win alone. The night she died, I promised her I'd never stay silent again. Not when I know something's wrong, not even if it costs me everything. Serafina felt something crack inside her chest. My father trusted the wrong person once. His business partner, a man he considered a friend. The betrayal destroyed him. He died 6 months later. I built this company on his grave, promising myself I'd never trust anyone the way he did, that I'd never let someone close enough to destroy me. How's that working out? Ethan asked gently. Lonely. So incredibly lonely. Yeah, it is, but maybe we're lonely for different reasons. You won't let people in. I can't convince people to see past what I've been accused of. I see past it, Serafina said quietly. You're the first person in 4 years who has. Ethan worked on the chip analysis in secret, using equipment Serafina had quietly given him access to. The data architecture was sophisticated and vicious. 2 layers of encryption, nested like Russian dolls meant to deceive. The outer layer was exactly what it appeared. Project Phoenix in complete detail. A revolutionary clean energy technology. Patents, algorithms, test results. Worth billions. Any company possessing it would dominate the renewable energy sector for a generation. But underneath, hidden in the metadata, was the real payload. A complete record of corporate espionage spanning 14 months. Encrypted emails discussing theft and sale of proprietary technology. Wire transfer receipts showing payments to offshore accounts. Server access logs proving someone with executive clearance had been systematically copying Caldwell's most valuable assets. And voice recordings. Dozens of them. Ethan listened 3 times before he was certain. Then a 4th time. Because he couldn't believe it. The voice was familiar. Calm. Authoritative. Someone who'd been in every major meeting. Someone Serafina trusted. He checked the metadata timestamps, cross-referenced them with company records, traced financial transactions through shell corporations. Every piece pointed to the same person, Richard Hale, the CFO, the man who'd worked with Serafina's father. Ethan sat back, staring at the screen. This wasn't just theft. It was a long-term strategy. Richard had been planning this for over a year. The merger wasn't just business. It was the final move in a chess game Serafina didn't know she was playing. If she'd signed, the company buying Caldwell would have received nothing of value. Within a month, they'd have sued for fraud. Caldwell Innovations would have been destroyed in legal battles. And Richard? He'd already negotiated a position with the competitor. He'd walk away with Phoenix and a fortune, while Serafina's company burned. Ethan downloaded everything to an encrypted drive. Then he went to find Serafina. She was in her office at 2 in the morning. City lights glittered through the windows behind her. She looked up when he entered. "You found something." It wasn't a question. "We need to talk." About Richard Hale. Serafina's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "My CFO? Your traitor." Ethan plugged the drive into her computer. The evidence loaded slowly, piece by piece. Serafina watched in silence as her most trusted advisor's betrayal played out in data and recorded conversations. Her face remained controlled, but her hands gripped the desk edge until her knuckles went white. When the last file finished, she spoke. "How long?" 14 months of documented activity. Possibly longer. Richard worked with my father. He was at Dad's funeral. He held my hand at the grave and promised he'd help me honor his legacy. Her voice cracked. "He was going to let you burn," Ethan said quietly. "The merger was designed to destroy you. You'd have been sued, investigated, possibly prosecuted. Your reputation destroyed. Your company dismantled." While Richard walked away with everything valuable, Serafina stood, walked to the window, stared out at the city. "Why are you telling me this? You could have used this evidence to clear your name publicly. Because this is your company, your life, your betrayal to confront. I know what it's like when other people make decisions about your pain." She turned. "You could have destroyed me with this. Leaked it. Sold it. I don't want revenge. I want justice. There's a difference." The emergency board meeting was called for 9 the following morning. Every executive required to attend. Richard Hale walked in confident, smiling, already talking about damage control. He wore an expensive suit and carried a leather portfolio. He saw Serafina at the head of the table and nodded pleasantly. "Good morning, Serafina. I've prepared talking points for the investors. We can still salvage this if we act quickly. Sit down, Richard." Something in her voice made him pause. The smile stayed fixed, but his eyes changed. He sat slowly. Serafina remained standing. Behind her, the presentation screen flickered to life. "I've called you all here to discuss a security breach. One that's been ongoing for 14 months. One that nearly destroyed this company." The first email appeared on screen. Richard's name in the sender field, a competitor's domain in the recipient, technical specifications attached. "Someone with executive clearance has been systematically copying our most valuable assets and preparing to sell them." More evidence appeared. Bank transfers, encrypted messages, server logs showing after-hours access to restricted files. The board members started murmuring. Turning to look at Richard, his face remained calm, but a muscle jumped in his jaw. This is absurd. Where did you get this supposed information? From the chip in my laptop. The one you had installed 3 weeks ago. That janitor fed you paranoid conspiracy theories. And now you're believing him over someone who's worked beside you for 8 years? Think about who you're trusting. I am thinking. For the first time in years, I'm thinking clearly. She clicked to the next slide. Audio began to play. Richard's voice, crystal clear, discussing delivery schedules and price points for Phoenix. The beauty of it is, she'll never see it coming. Too trusting. Just like her father. When the fraud lawsuit hits, she'll be buried in legal problems. I'll be running their energy division from the other side. The room went silent. Every face turned toward Richard. He stood slowly. You can't believe this fabricated nonsense. I've given 20 years to this industry. 8 of them to this company. You've given 20 years of planning. Serafina said. The board will vote on your immediate termination. Then, we're turning everything over to the FBI. Richard looked around the table. Saw no allies. His mask cracked. You have no idea what you've done. That technology was wasted here. You're too cautious to innovate. I took a risk on you, Serafina said quietly. You took a risk on your father's memory. This whole company is a monument to a man who died because he was too trusting. You're exactly like him. No, Richard. I'm learning to trust the right people. Finally. And you were never one of them. Security entered. Richard didn't resist, but kept his eyes locked on Serafina. That janitor will destroy you eventually. He's a bomb waiting to go off. You'll see. The guards escorted him out. The door closed. Serafina stood still, staring at the space he'd occupied. Around her, the board sat in stunned silence. Serafina found Ethan 2 hours later in the maintenance bay. Lila was eating a slightly stale sandwich, swinging her legs and humming. She waved when she saw Serafina. Hi. Did you catch? The bad man? We did, sweetheart. Thanks to your dad. He's good at catching bad people. He just needed someone to believe him finally. Ethan looked up from organizing equipment. He didn't ask how it went. Just waited. It's done, Serafina said. Richard's in federal custody. The FBI has everything. Good. The board voted to offer you a permanent position, head of corporate security, full executive salary, college fund for Lila, whatever you need. Ethan was quiet. That's generous. It's what you've earned. I'm still a janitor. A few days of being right doesn't change 4 years of being blamed. It changes everything, Serafina said. I've spent 8 years building walls, trusting only systems because they can't betray. Except they can. Richard knew every system. He exploited all of it. And the only thing that saved us was a person. Someone who did the right thing anyway. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe. After the company was destroyed. She looked at him directly. You didn't just save Caldwell Innovations. You saved me from becoming exactly what my father feared. Someone so terrified of betrayal that I couldn't recognize loyalty standing right in front of me. Ethan smiled slightly. Loyalty wasn't standing. It was mopping. You know what I mean. I do. Lila bounded over. Sandwich finished. Are you guys friends now? Like, real friends? Yes, Serafina said. We are. Good. Friends are super important. Daddy says you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have friends, you're just alone with expensive stuff. Serafina laughed. Actually laughed. Your daughter is wise, Ethan. She gets it from her mother, Ethan said softly. Jennifer used to say that success without connection is just loneliness with a better view. She was right. Serafina crouched to Lila's level. Thank you for sharing your dad with me. I know he's special. Are you going to be his friend for a long time? I hope so. Serafina stood, looked at Ethan. The position is real. But I need to know you trust me too. That this means something. Ethan met her eyes. I'm here because, for the first time in 4 years, Someone looked at what I did instead of what I was accused of doing. That means everything. Then we're both learning. She held out her hand, not corporate. Something more personal. Ethan took it. His palm was calloused. Hers was soft. They fit. The press conference happened 3 days later. Serafina stood at a podium before cameras and reporters, flashbulbs popping. She'd spent 8 years in the public eye. This felt different, more honest. Today, Caldwell Innovations announces major changes. We're suspending the merger indefinitely while we conduct a security audit. We've also uncovered and prosecuted corporate espionage at the executive level. The room erupted with questions. She waited for silence. More importantly, we're launching the Phoenix Foundation, a program dedicated to rehabilitating careers destroyed by false accusations in tech. We'll fund legal aid, job placement, and support. Because I've learned something. Our industry's greatest vulnerability isn't our technology. It's our willingness to sacrifice people without asking the right questions. She paused. I've also learned that integrity doesn't come with a title. Some of the most trustworthy people in this company don't sit in boardrooms. They work night shifts. They notice things others miss. They do the right thing when no one's watching. Because that's who they are. I used to believe people were the weakest link. Now I understand that honest people are the strongest firewall we have. She stepped back. Questions followed, but she didn't answer. In the back, watching on a monitor, Ethan stood with Lila on his shoulders. Daddy, are they talking about you? Kind of. You're famous. No, I'm just trying to do better. But when the camera showed his photograph on the screen behind Serafina, he felt something he hadn't felt in 4 years. Recognition. The world was finally seeing him clearly. 1 year later, Caldwell Innovations looked different. Not the building, but the culture had shifted. Trust was policy now. Ethan had an office on the 32nd floor, modest but comfortable. He'd insisted on keeping his Janitor 47 badge mounted on his door. A reminder. Some executives thought it eccentric. Others understood perfectly. The Phoenix Foundation had funded 63 cases. 3 had resulted in complete exoneration. 12 in new employment. The rest were in progress, but every person now had legal representation and hope. Lila was 9 now, thriving. She'd started a tech club at school, teaching other kids coding. When asked who taught her, she always said, "My dad and his friend Serafina." Ethan and Serafina had developed an unusual partnership. He overhauled security infrastructure, but always consulted her first. She made executive decisions, but ran them past him. They challenged each other, balanced each other, started having lunch together, then coffee, then long conversations about nothing related to work. People noticed. Some speculated. Most were too busy to gossip. On the anniversary of the night, everything changed. Serafina called an all-hands meeting. Employees packed the auditorium. She stood on stage, and beside her, under a spotlight, was a glass case. Inside it, mounted on black velvet, was the silver chip. "A year ago," Serafina began, "this tiny piece of technology nearly destroyed us. It was planted by someone we trusted. It was discovered by someone we'd overlooked. And it taught us the most important lesson." She gestured to Ethan, who joined her on stage looking uncomfortable. Ethan Brooks joined this company as a night janitor. Now he's our chief security officer. But the position didn't change who he was. He was the same person mopping floors that he is now. We just finally had the sense to notice. Applause filled the room. Then, something unexpected happened. Ethan reached into his jacket, pulled out a small box. The room went silent. Serafina's eyes widened. "I'm terrible at speeches," Ethan said, "and worse at timing. But I learned something this year. When you find someone who truly sees you, you don't wait. You trust it." He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver band. Engraved inside, "Trust restored. Serafina Caldwell, you gave me back my career. But more than that, you gave me back my faith that the world can still be fair. You saw past my uniform, my record, everything. You looked at who I was trying to be, You taught me that walls can come down without everything falling apart. He knelt. 800 people held their breath. I can't give you back the years you spent protecting yourself, but I can promise you a future where you never have to face anything alone, where trust isn't weakness, where we build something real together. Will you marry me? Serafina's hand covered her mouth. Tears streamed down her face. You're proposing in front of 800 employees? Is that a no? It's a yes, you impossible man. Yes. Ethan stood, slipped the ring on her finger, and kissed her while the company erupted in applause. Lila rushed the stage, wrapping her arms around both of them. I get a mom now, she shouted, and the audience cheered harder. Later, after the celebration wound down, Serafina and Ethan stood alone in her office. The glass case with the chip sat on her desk. That thing was inside a trader's laptop, Serafina said, touching the glass. Meant to destroy everything. Then it ended up in my hands. Led me to you. Now it's a symbol of how we started. Strange symbol for a marriage. We're a strange couple. A CEO and a former janitor. Current chief security officer, Serafina corrected. Still strange. Good. I wouldn't have it any other way. Ethan pulled her close. Through the window, Manhattan sparkled. 48 floors below, life continued. The chip caught the light, glinting silver. A reminder that sometimes the things meant to destroy us reveal exactly what we need to survive. Trust, courage, and the willingness to let someone see us clearly.